Hi, I'm Rob from JDUK. This is my colleague Rick, and we're here at the Wisniowski Training Centre. So you may hear a little bit of background noise. That's because we're actually in a working environment. And we're going to run through the installation procedure for the Wisniowski SMP 2.0 JDUK version of door. So we've set out the basic hardware that comes in your kit. So we have all the installation manuals here. We've actually set it out in order. So we've got fixings, track suspensions, roller hardware, cable, and on this version of door, because we're fitting a manual door, we've got the locking assembly as well. So the first part of the step is we're going to install the side seals to the frame legs of the door. Okay, so this is the side seal that is a push fit section onto the frame leg. As you can see, it's a 4-chamber seal. Having the 4 chambers in that helps with the thermal efficiency of the door. The other second issue is that it also has a double seal, so it has 2 flap seal, which gives you really good draft insulation around the door panel. So we're just installing the side seal onto the frame leg, and it's just a push fit section, so you just push all the way up. Okay, so that frame seal's on this side, and it's just repeating the process on the opposite frame leg. So again, similarly, it's exactly the same process for fitting the seal to the fascia or head frame. Next part of the process, after we fitted the frame leg seals, is to install the front cover caps or cover profiles onto the front face of the frame leg. There are 2 sides, C-section. You have a normal folded side, and then you have a normal open side, and then a folded side. The folded side always goes to the outside where the rubber seal is, and the reason it's folded is so you don't get any corrosion on that edge, and it's not an open finish. So the way to install this is on the side you have these plates, and you need to slowly or loosely take these off, and it'll fit behind and clamp in that plate. So we'll show you that procedure now. Yep, so it just wants to lip underneath the plate itself. Bring the plate back to the front edge and then tighten it back up. Just one thing to mention, it's also really important that you don't loosen the bottom 2 screws towards this point here, because if you loosen those you actually lose the angle of the track. So you want to keep those tight. It's just these bracket sections that you need to loosen. Okay, so for transportation we had the pulley plate installed onto the frame leg already, but to make installation easier you just need to loosen these slightly because that'll aid your installation of track and getting it aligned properly. So before your installation, if you just loosen those slightly, leave them loose, and we'll go through the process of tightening those back up when we install the track. So another thing just to remember is make sure it's all flush at the bottom. Otherwise, you don't want to see a bit of the galv frame underneath the cover profile. Another important issue is to remove the protective film before you install. As you can see, we've now completed both frame legs with the cover profiles on, and as I previously said, make sure before you install it is just remove the foil, because I have had situations where customers have rung me up and said my frame's gone a different colour, and I've said, have you taken the protective film off? And they went, what protective film? So always take this off. So we have a similar process for the fascia profile, the folded edge always to the seal, the cut edge always to the inside. There's two ways of fitting this capping seal. Is if you are tight for headroom, we will supply you with a small flat plated washer which does the clamping section. But today, because we're fitting to a timber frame, the other way of doing it is with an angle bracket. So we're going to install an angle bracket on here just to show you that it also clamps the profile, but then you also have a fixing point into the framework. It's also important with anything like this just to put a little bit of protection underneath the cover profile so it doesn't scratch and mark. Today, in this ideal situation, we have a nice clean workbench. So this section has now been prepared, and again as before, just remember to remove the film from the actual cover profile that's on here before you install it. Okay, so just a couple of options for installation. Today we're using brackets to fit directly to the timber framework. So we're going to bolt the brackets on, same as we have done with the fascia, but also if you don't require brackets or you're limited on side room, you can actually drill straight through the actual angle frame. You will just need to pre-drill through the actual cover profile and then fix directly to brickwork. So we're just going to install these 4 brackets up the side, and we're also going to put one at the bottom. So we're going to undo this, install one there, put that back on, and then do the other 3 up the frame leg. So we've completed this process. You can also combine that, so depending on your fixing structure, you may need to fix in the frame here, outside the frame here. So if you do it as a diagonal, sometimes that gives you a lot more structure and rigidity to the frame. But the frame itself, because it's a 2mm galv frame, is really, really strong. And just repeat the process on the other frame leg. A small part for manual doors only, for manual locking, is this little roller wheel. And before you put the frame into the opening, we should take out this little bolt at the bottom of the spring plate. What this actually does is, it stops the actual panels being pulled from side to side. So it's basically just like a safeguard. So if somebody's trying to break into the door, you have this set against the actual panel itself as it rolls up and down, so it can't be pushed across. So we'll adjust that and make sure. Okay, so now it's the act of connecting the frame leg to the fascia plate, as you can see here. We have a special corner adaptation bracket, which is unique to JD. So these 2 pieces fit together with this bracket. So when you put this together, make sure also that the frame leg seal is tucked underneath the header seal. So you want the frame leg seal there to be underneath this seal, and we fix this with 2 bolts. I'll just take one out of your handbrake. So it has a machine screw, an Allen key head. So depending on your headroom situation, you can either bolt this way, nut this side, or bolt through and nut this side. Okay, so as you tighten up, we'll tighten those 2 up and repeat the process on the other side to connect the frame and leg together on that side. Okay, so now we're going to lift the whole structure onto the back of the opening. Okay, so once temporarily clamped in place, we will then go around with levels to make sure that the sides are level, header frame is level, because it's really important that you get all the aperture and the structure correct, level, because it's really important for the helping of the working of the door when it's in. Okay, just in case the head frame is out of square, you will just need to install some sort of packing plate just to make sure it's all nice and level across the top. Okay, so now we've got the framework in square and level, we're just going to fix the framework on this occasion through this external bracket, but as I said before, you can also fit internally at these points, which we'll show you in a minute. So we're just going to pre-drill these because it's timber. We do supply fixings with this for all applications, so we'll just do this section and then we'll not film the other side, but obviously it's just a repeat process on the other frame leg and similarly on the head frame. We'll do a little bit of a section at this top corner up here in a moment, up there, up this section here, because that's really important to JD as a point for installers. A big positive for our system is whether you're fitting, as we've just shown you, with angle brackets on the outside or you're going through directly into block work or timber work here, we have this connecting bracket, as I mentioned before. This also has adaptations or installation slots, so you can physically install straight into concrete lintels, block work, and we have various slots this way to give you the maximum installation applications within that frame set area. So when you receive your horizontal track system, it's basically in three parts. This part, the front section with the top curve on, and then the radius, which is this section. So each part has three parts, and we also have two joining plates. Depending on how you want to do it, as an installer, I like to put these all together in one section here. Some installers will put just this section and then put this section on the actual track and then install it together at that. Basically it's your preference, but we're going to install it all as one piece and then install the one piece onto the frame leg. Okay, so we're just going to fit the top section into these connecting plates using a bolt and nut. Sometime, depending on the production, you may just have to loosen these two, but it's on the odd occasion just to get this nut in and then tighten that section all back up. Okay, so the next part is fitting this connection plate onto the underside, which will then connect for the radius. So we'll start this now. So this one we're going to install but loosely leave, so leave it a little bit loose. So that'll help with the installation, which will form on the top track. So we're going to basically just pop it in and just do it finger tight, and then we'll adjust it once we've got the track up and in. So we'll do exactly the same thing for the opposite side of the track. Just before we install the horizontal track onto the frame, we're also going to install this, what we call a hold open clip. Basically this is used predominantly in manual doors. What it does is when you install it, it creates a little bit of friction, so when you push the door up, if you want a greater headroom, it'll sort of click into there, it'll lock itself in rather than drop straight back down. You'll see that in action later, but we're just going to install that onto the track system now. Okay, so that bit's finished, or nearly finished. We'll do the same thing on the other side of to the other track. We're going to install the horizontal tracks now onto the frame legs. And as a team, this is why it works really well, because you have Rick, who's on a ladder at that end, and me being the shorter one of the two just needs to stand here and just hold, which is the best job. Okay, so as you can see, Rick's just putting the bolts in loosely into position. So at this point, all this area is still loose and not tightened. So what we'll do is, I'll just let mine drop a little section, just to help him install it. So one of the most important things is to join the vertical section to the radius section. You need to get that section so it rolls really nice and smoothly. So we'll install this area and then we'll do a little close-up area. So now we've got the bolts in loosely, we're just going to go around and tighten all this section up, making sure that these areas here, which we'll just have a close-up later, run nice and smoothly. I've obviously got my level to level up the track. So that area's finished. We'll do the same process on the other side, and then we'll take a couple of close-up of key areas that we want to focus on, just to show you how to make the door nice and smoothly run. Okay, so within this section now we've hung the track and it's temporarily self-supporting. Also what we've incorporated are these Allen key bolts. You'll have seen Rick tightening from this side. If you don't have the side room to do that, you basically would just hold a spanner and turn with an Allen key and tighten all this section up. The other thing that's really important to get correct is these joining sections, these two sections here. Okay, so what I do is a little tip. I get the top roller bracket, a wheel, I just put it in and run it round, and at that point you'll feel any bumps and clunks and clicks. You know, I'm making that noise because I'm pushing it hard, but if that didn't roll correctly, you just need to adjust these 2 points again to make it smooth running. Okay, so we're going to install the back bar or cross member onto the rear of the tracks. The brackets are already pre-installed onto the end of the track to connect to. So we're going to connect this now with two small nuts and bolts. You may see as well that when we connect this in like a wider shot, that it might look slightly out of square. It won't be out of square. Just a bit of knowledge while we're here is because we're in the training facility, is they make the frames that we're fitting to slightly out of square for the apprentices to then work out what they need to do with openings. So if you do see something that looks slightly out of square, it's not what we're doing, it's the frame that's already installed. So it's important when you tighten this area up to make sure that this section is level. So make sure it's level before you tighten this section up. So I'm just going to show you the two different ways to hang or support the track system. Because we're in a training room, I don't actually have a side wall to mount to, so I'm just going to show you how you would install this little part. So we have basically two items. We have a threaded plate here and an outer sleeve. So we would insert the plate into this section, probably about there. The capping piece goes over the top, like so. And in this plate itself, you've actually got two little threads, so it's a threaded plate. So you need to try and align those up properly. Okay, just by eyeing them up. And then also you have your suspension element, your hanging strap. You can then locate at pretty much any point in there. Just put your little bolt in, thread it in, same on both sides. thread that in. You don't have to tighten them up at the second, just leave them sort of finger tight, and then you can then slide that element. So say if you had a side fixing wall, you would fix it sort of here, drill in, so you level it up, make sure it's level, fix this way with the screws and plugs provided. You can go up to a maximum of 250 mil this way, so as long as it's under 250 mil you'll be fine, and that's how you install this little element finding tracks at the back. Okay, so now we're going to do the traditional suspension method, which is basically vertically to the roof or trusses or ceilings above. So in the kit you have a track support bracket, a standard track hanger or suspension unit, approximately 500 mil. You can see from this that that's not long enough to fit to where we want to go. So you have an optional extra of an extension piece to join the track together to make it as long as you need. So this is what we'll be using. We'll be using the standard support bracket, standard hanger, and optional track support. So one of the advantages of using this support bracket system is that you can locate it at any point along the track depending on where your support is. So it can be moved to where you need the actual support section, and then once you've done it you fix it and then we'll locate it on. So again, what we'll do is we'll just loosen this section up, we'll put it to the height that we need. I'll also level the tracks again to make sure it's the right distance, to make sure that it's correct. So I want to go there. Okay, and then what we'll do is now is we'll directly fix from the bracket into the timberwork, temporarily suspend it. We'll repeat this down the track and on the other side, and then we'll do the corner to corner or the leveling up. Right, as you can see, we've partially installed, or we've just loosely installed these to give us a little bit of flexibility in movement until we do our final adjustments. As you can see, this strap system is going towards the brick wall if there was a brick wall. So you've got multi-directional, so it can either go this way or it can go into the doorway. So you've got options to actually install the door, which is obviously far better when you're on site. So what we'll do is we'll go now and we'll do a corner to corner to make sure it's all square. We obviously, before we do, we make sure that our tracks are level. So we'll level these up now, and then we'll do a corner to corner, fix it in, and then after that we'll be able to move on to panels. Okay, so now it's really important to get a corner to corner dimension to make sure that the tracks are parallel, because sometimes they can be offset and measure correctly at the back and at the front, but they won't run parallel. So it's really important to get that distance correctly there, that distance correctly there, and to be of an equal measurement on both corners. So easiest way is just pick a corner, wherever the corner is. I normally pick just below the hookup bracket, put the tape measure into that corner. Rick will then pick his corner at the back bar end, take his measurement. I'm going to do exactly the same thing on the opposite side, and these two measurements need to be equal. So you may need to move the back end of the track one way or the other way until they're equal. When they're equal, then we can screw the track supports into place and then move on to the panel work after. Yeah, that's fine. So the other thing just to mention is on your track supports, you'll just need to lever these little tab ends over the track just to make sure that they don't pop off. Next part is panel preparation. So we've left the panel in the crate just for ease of handling. It shows in the instructions to cut off any access at either end, so to make sure it's fairly flush. Also to screw a little screw in. So we've pre-drilled this little section and then we screw in. What this does is it helps, or it stops the seal from moving from side to side, and also the shrinkage of the actual bottom rubber seal. So you'll do this at this end and also at the opposite end. Next procedure is we're just going to assemble the bottom wheel bracket section. So Rick's just going to show you how to put this together, and then we'll do the other one separately, and then we'll put them onto panel and then install the panels.
The plastic pull down, like so, on that edge goes to that edge and over, so it's all down one side. You then have the cables, spindle through the cables, through the bottom bracket, and that is it.
On this particular door, which is a manual door, we have a different configurations of panel brackets and roller brackets. It's also, the main reason for this is because this is a manually locking door. So this is the standard bracket that you would receive if it wasn't a manual locking door. So it has a roller hinge bracket assembly and a roller plate. The only difference to this door, because it has a manual lock system, on the top of the bottom panel, you have two sections. You have a hinge, and then this profile section, as you can see, it's on a slightly different angle between the two. This is to avoid the locking mechanism as the door rises. Okay, so this is a little bit of preparation for the bottom panel. What we normally do is we would normally lightly score down the end of each panel. You just need to be careful not to obviously scrape along the panel or whatever. It's just to remove the protective film until we get the panel in. So all I'm going to do is just score down here, remove it a couple of inches this way, leave it on the panel. Then after we've installed all the panels, we'll take them all off. But we'll do the same process for each panel. So score at the end, remove a couple of inches in on each panel, fit the panels, and then remove the whole of the filming on the outside. So basically just leave it like that, and then if you want to do the other side, that side, Rick. Okay, so now we'll put the panel into the opening. Okay, so now we're going to put the bottom roller onto the panel. So we've prepped the panel before, so we've fastened the rubber seal at the bottom with a screw, which we've gone through before. We're now just going to fit the bottom roller bracket that was assembled earlier on into this rail and then onto the panel. So it's a case of just hooking it on to the side. Yeah, you can actually feed it in from the top if needs be, and then just push it down to the pre-drilled holes at the bottom. That's a bit there we go. So in that section, all these holes will be pre-drilled on the panel. Next one for this particular door, because it's a manual door, as I mentioned before, we have a special or a slightly different hinge assembly. So this will come in two parts. So it's place those two parts together, and into the pre-drilled hole sections you can fit. So if you put them in loosely to start, and then we get a better adjustment once they're all in. And then to tighten them up, just check the alignment, just to make sure it's all square and level. tighten those four up. Okay. Okay, so the next part is the assembly of the next panel, or the top of this panel one, which is the roller and a spacer. So when you put the spacer on, make sure the spacer is inserted onto the roller, but you have the larger diameter edge on that side, the roller holder then on there, hook in onto the plate, and then again loosely secure with nut and bolt. Okay, so at this point I'll just leave them fairly loose. We'll do the same thing on the other side, and then what we'll do is we'll adjust the panel to make sure it's in the right position, so the roller's up against the back edge but not too tight against the front seal. So we'll take a close-up of that to show you how to do that. So while Rick's putting the other side on, it's just one more thing to mention. We've obviously put the framework, the frame, the fascia, everything in nice and square, symmetrical. The other thing as well, just to check, is level of the panel. Because if your floor has a bump or a rise, you could be setting things slightly out of square. So also check that the door panel itself is in the correct position. The adjustment of this is the next step. We want to make it a nice, so the roller itself is pushed up against this back edge here, but not, the panel itself is not pushed hard against the rubber seal. If you make it pushed hard against the rubber seal, this section, and hard here, the door becomes very stiff to open and close. So you want it so you can just about turn the wheel on this back side, and there's sufficient space between the front of the panel for it to glide easily, but also to seal. Okay, so we look at that, that's probably in the right position about there, making sure that this is level. Yeah, so you want to make sure that the distances are approximately the same, and just tighten that up. And we'll do the same thing on the opposite side. We're just also putting the intermediate hinge on. So this is shown in the instructions to do, but you may not have an intermediate hinge on doors up to 2.6 wide. So it's basically applicable to the door. Some door panels will have it already pre-drilled, some won't, depending on the door width, but that's normal. Next thing, we're going to insert these little pack of cardboard pieces. It just gives a little bit more tolerance when we're installing the panel. Okay, so we'll pop those on. We'll go and get the second panel, and from that point on we'll show you how to install that, and then it's just a repeat process all the way up to the top panel. Okay, so we're going to put the next panel in, but as previously, we're just going to probably pop it on there. But before we close it up, we've already done the same thing about removing the film from the end at each side. Also, once you pop it up, if you find that it's slightly out of position, it's not in line with the panel below, rather than just try and tap it from this side, make sure you always push it back, tap it, then pop it back again. It potentially saves any sort of damage to the seals as when you're trying to repeat this process. So we'll now fix this panel in, and as I said, it's the same process for the next panel above. You just tap that one. Okay, so depending on the situation, the orientation of these two hinges were that way onto the roller spindle, but because the track graduates out, putting it that way won't give you enough. So what you have to do is you have to turn that round, which then that gives you the movement that way. So usually what would happen at this point, because we're at this level, Rick starts to struggle because he can't see that high. So I usually have to go across to that side and do it for him, or get him a step or something. Okay, so now we're just ready for the top panel. Same thing again, so make sure you remove about 2 inches of foil from this side, but also the same at the top. Obviously you have this capping on this door, so you need to score and then remove about 2 inches downwards. Otherwise you might struggle trying to remove that after when it's way, way up in the opening. Okay, so we've got the top pan in place. We've not put the intermediate in, we'll put that in a second. But it's basically the top roller bracket that's in now. So you have your little wheel, which fits into the bracket. That will fit into the top panel here, or the top track. But when we put it in, so basically we're going to put it into the track, put it up against the panel. We're going to mark it in the correct position, which will give you a close-up in a second of how to set for a manual door and an automated door. So we're just going to mark the panel, drill a couple pre-drill holes, and then we'll get you a close-up of how we should set the door for both options. So this top bracket section, this top roller wheel, we're going to just put into situ, and we're going to pre-drill these holes. But then we're also going to give you a closer-up view of how to set this position for a manual door and an automated door. Even though the door we're fitting is a manual door, we'll just show you how to set it up for both options. Okay, so we've fixed this bracket into the manual position for a manual door, and as you can see, the wheel itself is actually sat in the vertical part of this track. That's because as you lift the door, you are physically lifting the door up and then round. And if it was an automated door, I'll just quickly loosen these. So door with motor, you would have this track, this roller system. Okay, so on an automated door, you can see the position has changed. So this wheel bracket is slightly higher. So the top of the wheel needs to be touching the top part of that track. See about there? See now, it's touching that part there. And that's because the operator, or the motor, directly pulls the door back. So I'll lower it back down. Okay. All right, so we've got all the roller brackets on, door in place. Now it's just a case of lifting the door into the opening. Fortunately, Rick's had his porridge and his breakfast this morning, so he feels meh. Ready? Go. So I'll hold it there because I get all the toe hold jobs, and Rick's just going to clamp it in the opening so it doesn't drop back down before we put these springs on. Okay, so that's held in position, so you may need to make sure that's really safe so it doesn't drop down. So whether you use clamps or props, you just need to make sure it's really safe in this open position. And now we're going to show you the spring and cable hookup part. Rick's just now going to show you the procedure for the cable hookup. So you can see it goes around the top pulley, making sure these are in line and not twisted. You can see obviously they're straight all the way down. We'll bring it up so you can see. So you want to keep the spring, making sure they're not twisted. Then individually hook into the slots in the top part. Okay. So when it's free hung as well, just check that there's no twists or kinks in the cable. So they're all nice and straight. Like that. And that's just a little cover to stop finger entrapment onto the top of the springs. Next part is hooking into the bottom plate. So if we'd count down so it's an equal number to start with, and then once we get the door up and running, we'll then adjust after. So we normally set centrally. Okay, and we'll do exactly the same process after we've. So actually what we'll do, we'll secure this in now for this temporarily in the bottom. And then if we need to adjust it after, we'll just take the screw back out and adjust the spring. And we'll do exactly the same process on the other side of the door. After we've installed the springs and cables, there's the little cover cap that goes over the pulley wheel and the cable section, just to stop the cables jumping off, which is a safety issue. So it's really good to have a cover across the top of that. It's also stop finger entrapment as well. So this is done on both sides of the door, so we'll do the other side now. Okay, so now once we've done all that, we're now going to remove the clamps. I'm here just as a little safety support, just to stop the door dropping down. So as you can see now, the door is balanced by the springs. So what we need to do is check the balancing of the door, whether we need to put more tension on the door or less tension on the door. So also, as you're closing the door down, if you want to remove the little cardboard packers that may still be in, that's the point to do it when it reaches that point. Okay, so at the moment that's down, what we normally would say is when we open it, that's about right. So at any point we should be a nicely balanced door. Now we're going to install the manual locking handle onto the door. So this is the kit. Obviously we've opened the box up, so inside you have the handle, plate, internal handle, latch keep, lock body, cylinder, sliding rod connection, fixings, which is also fixing for the internal pull handle, and we'll describe what this is, but this is a little pulley wheel that fits on the opposite side of the locking. It's a bit like a bit of an anti-burglar device because it stops the door from being pushed across from one side. Okay, so on manual doors, this is already pre-drilled out for you. So you have the section for the spindle, lock cylinder, and then fixing holes. So I'll go and stand outside and do my job of just standing there and looking good, while Rick will do the inside bit that will be filmed. So again, at this point, just remember to peel back this foil. Just to say that point, because you don't want to be fitting this onto here and then having to peel it back all off again. So I'm going to just put this fascia plate on, and then Rick's going to screw to these holes from the inside to locate it, which should be shown shortly. Then I'll insert the handle, and then Rick will also fasten this from the inside. There we go. Okay, now Rick's going to screw that from the other side. These are the fixing screws for the fascia plate that's already outside. As you can see, they've got a little Allen key head. Rick's going to put those in now. So they just locate into there, just to keep the fascia plate on. So make sure you don't over tighten those and indent the panel. Okay, so that's now on. I'll go and insert this from the other side, and then Rick will fit the lock body internally, which you can keep showing from that. Okay, so the handle's through. We're now going to put the lock body on. So these screws, it's not necessarily that they have a pre-drilled, so advice is basically just to put them in there, give it a little short tap with your screwdriver or the drill, so it just points the drill in, and then they'll self-tap in. Yeah, Again, when you're doing that, just make sure you don't over tighten them and pull the thread out, otherwise they'll just spin. So just take it nice and easy when you're doing that. Next part, put the internal handle on. Again, don't over tighten that, because if you over tighten it, it makes your handle very stiff to open and close. So just check that. Next part is installing the latch on the pre-drilled holes. So I'm just going to pop that there. I'm going to be the helping hand for Rick. So I'm just going to hold it there for him. And same applies to anything. When you're obviously screwing it to the panel, make sure that it's nice and square. Because if you don't, like most things, it may affect the performance of the actual part you're trying to install. So that's installed. Next part is we're just going to show you the connection of the rod onto the latch part. A little black grommet and a threaded machine screw that goes through that end. And then the locking nut on the bottom. So that just winds and threads through. Okay, so now to get you a bit of a better angle, we're going to show you how to do the other side. Now we're going to connect the locking rod to the lock casing. The lock casing itself has a thread in this section, so we just tap the screw or the bolt through, but also underneath there's a locking nut, because what you want to do is you want to make sure that this is fairly loose. So the locking nut is just to stop the bolt unwinding within that section. So when you tighten it, make sure it's tightened on, but you still have that. We're now going to fit the keep for the latch section. So we would probably just put this so it just touches the top of the latch. Look at where we need to space it here. So we're going to bolt it through these two parts here. And then once it's bolted through, if we need to adjust up and down, we can do on a slide. And that will be the latch keep. We haven't tightened it, so we'll just close it back down and see if that's the rough position of where we want to go. I need to move that actually up a little bit, so we'll just adjust that into the next holes up. So if you want to open that back up, over there. Yep, so we know that our latch is going to engage in that section there. So what we'll do is we'll tighten that up there, and that's our mechanism fitted at this side. Okay. We have all this now connected. Mechanism, bar, latch, keep. And we can just open and close the door. You can also see engages there. We're going to install the internal pull handle, and the area that it needs to go in is the bottom part of the panel. And there's a specific measurement in the installation manual, which means that the bottom screw hole needs to be 25mm up from the bottom of the panel. The main reason for that is the reinforcing within the panel is in this bottom section. So Rick's just going to mark the 25mm up and the holes, and then we'll screw them in. So if you want to put that one in first and then level it up. So we get the first one at 25mm, level this up, fit the other bottom one, and then do the two top ones. Now we've finished the full installation of the door. Just a reminder really, is just to make sure you peel off the protective film which is on the panel. Because otherwise, if you don't peel it off, what will happen if you leave it over time is that the glue, instead of being on the film, will bond to the panel, which can be an issue because it will take you an age to clean off. So please remember just to take off the film after you've completed the installation. So that's it. We've done our job at this end. So we've successfully installed this door. So we're going to open it up, and it's a bit of a grand finale from us because behind this is part of the Wisniowski team that's made it possible for us to be here today and to have a successful installation. So thanks for watching. See you all soon.